Pica Poco Kitchen. Today we're making huaraches. Vámonos! Around the 1930s, in the streets of La Viga in Mexico City, an entrepreneur by the name of Carmen Gomez Medina had a successful food vending business. She was the queen of garnachas. She had sopes and tlacoyos. But one day, I like to imagine, Carmencita was hungrier, and she thought, a tlacoyo isn't enough. I need something bigger. Well, maybe that's me projecting. But that's exactly what she did. She created a newer, bigger, thinner version of a tlacoyo. And it was an immediate success. Her clients loved it. And because of its shape and size, they started lovingly calling it huarache. A huarache is a traditional Mexican sandal. She wasn't very fond of the name in the beginning, but it grew on her, just like our love for huaraches. Later, this recipe evolved into including protein as a topping. And nowadays, you can find huaraches everywhere of any kind all around Mexico. So let's get to it. Before I do anything, I want my meat to rest in a simple marinade. You can use any meat you want, but I'm going for beefed up round steak thinly cut. I'm gonna squeeze half a lime, and all my measurements here are estimates because I really don't use an exact amount for anything. I'm adding some Maggi seasoning. I've talked to you about it before and you should try it, and it should be a staple in your pantry. I'm also adding some English sauce or Worcestershire sauce and some olive oil. Get everything well mixed. Make sure that the meat touches all of the juices. And since I'm using the Maggi seasoning, I won't be adding any sauce. If you can find it, you can substitute it for soy sauce, and the same would be don't add any extra salt. But I am gonna add some pepper. With everything combined, I just need to cover my meat and let it sit in the fridge, preferably overnight. But if you don't have the time, 1 hour will do. The longer the better. And like with any other respectable garnacha, you need to start with a good dough. And for that, I'm gonna use masa harina. I have more or less 1.5 cups of masa harina that needs to be hydrated with. In order to get a nice and pliable dough, you need to use warm water. Don't go boiling water. You need to be comfortable when handling it. This time I used 1.25 cups of water. But remember, not every time is going to require the same amount. So add your water gradually. If when you make a bowl and you press it, the dough still has too many cracks, then continue adding more water, a little bit at a time. Another important factor of achieving a nice dough is giving it a good knead. Take your time. Make sure that all the flour is well hydrated. Use your fingers to get rid of any lumps and continue doughing until all your dough sticks together, is smooth, and it has a consistent and even look, just like that. And to make sure it is ready, take a bowl and make an indent in it. As you can see, there's no cracks. That means that my dough is ready. But before I use it, I need to let it sit and rest. So I'm gonna cover it with plastic touching the dough and leave it in my counter for at least 20 minutes. After that, it's gonna be ready to be used. And to make the huaraches, we're gonna start with a similar shape that when we did the tlacoyos. I'm gonna leave a card for that video over there in your screen. But remember, this time we're making them bigger. So I have a dough the size of an apple. With the dough I made, I'm gonna be able to make 4 huaraches. I'm gonna make a little indent in this ball of dough where I'm gonna put some beans. I went a little bit too crazy. You can add as little or as much as you want, and ideally you want all these beans to be in cluster in the dough, but because I added too much, well, I had a little trouble with that. But in the end, it really doesn't matter. So don't worry too much about it. And once I have an oblong shape, as you can see, is very similar to the one of the tlacoyos because remember, huaraches are the evolution of tlacoyos, just like Charmeleon is the evolution of Charmander. With the help of a Ziploc bag that I cut open, I'm gonna continue giving the shape to this huarache. You can make it as big as you want, but just remember that it has to fit in your pan because you don't want to encounter that problem. I have encountered that in other occasions. So use one hand to press the dough down and your other hand to delimit where you want the dough to go, trying to keep some sort of the oblong shape, but obviously flatter and thinner. It doesn't have to be perfect, don't you worry, and don't worry about the indents that you're making because once we put the plastic back and we flip it over, it's gonna flatten itself down. And of course, make sure to get rid of any little particle that didn't belong there, just like I did a second ago. When you're happy with the shape that you have, put the plastic down and by using your hand try to even out the thickness throughout all of your huarache. You can use your fingers to run them down like that or even with a little offset spatula or any other tool that you find handy, but honestly, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just make sure to distribute the dough so when it cooks evenly. At this point, I think I'm good to go, and the only thing that is left is to remove it carefully. To swiftly transfer the huarache from the plastic to the pan, you're gonna lift one side of the plastic, put it back down, and then flip the bag with the huarache. Lift that side up, and your huarache will come right to your hand. If your dough is well hydrated, you won't have any trouble by it sticking to the plastic. And don't forget, like I did, to add some oil to your pan if you want your huarache to be fried. Of course, you can just cook it without any oil, but I recommend oil because it's gonna give it a nice crispy texture and it's gonna help it hold better all the toppings and the weight of the meat that we're gonna put on it. So there you have it. Just carefully flip it when you think it has the right color and keep on doing the rest of your huaraches. And to keep the huaraches warm and soft while I make everything else, I have a layer situation here. I have my basket with a kitchen towel, 2 paper towels, and a piece of parchment. And I will transfer each huarache into the basket and layer it with a paper towel in between each of them just to absorb the extra fat. I'm gonna cover them back up with the parchment and the lid, and I'm gonna let them be on the side while I finish everything else. Huaraches are ready, so let's cook the protein. I made sure to take out my meat from the fridge right before I started making the huaraches so it wouldn't be too cold when put it into the grill. Just add a little bit of oil if you want to. Remember, it already has some oil, so it's really not necessary. And flip them to your liking because these ones are very thin. I'm just gonna leave them for a couple of minutes and they'll be ready to be sliced into strips to be put on top of my huaraches. And whatever toppings you decide to put on your huarache is up to you. But traditionally, you would always start with a layer of salsa. I'm using a simple guajillo and tomato sauce and then adding my meat. To that, I suggest adding some lettuce to bring some brightness, onion if you like it, not in this case because that one is for my husband, and some cheese. I suggest either canasto, fresco, or cotija. And whatever toppings you decide to put on your huarache, I just hope you enjoy it and add it to your garnacha collection because this one, in my opinion, is top. And there you have them. I hope you make them because you are going to love them. And if you make them for your loved ones, next time they say, "Hey, I love your huaraches," they might not just be talking about your shoe style. But most importantly, I hope you enjoyed this video just like this recipe, and if you did, please share it with your friends. Like, subscribe, and be notified. And for more, follow me on the socials. Adios, amigues.